Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. It's time for another Chatty Get Ready with me. Today's is going to be a little bit rambly. I usually have like a concise thing I want to talk about with these, and today I just have like amorphic thoughts and feelings about some things. So a couple nights ago, I had a piercer reach out to me with some questions about when they should be considered finished their apprenticeship, because they've been piercing solo on their own since December, and they're like doing stuff that even their like mentor and other piercers in their area don't offer. And so they're just like, well, am I considered like not an apprentice anymore? Like what should be the like point where I'm considered like a full-time piercer? And I was like, well, you know, like how long has your apprenticeship been? Like what has your training been like? Things like that. And this person started piercing in September of 2023. As of December of 2023, was being allowed to work on clients completely unsupervised and on their own. And sent me this message in May of 2024. So they've been apprenticing less than a year, and they're already working completely unsupervised on clients doing advanced and difficult piercings. And we talked a little bit more, and they let me know that they started doing piercings on day one. Like very first day of their apprenticeship, needle in hand, doing piercings. They were not like expected to take a bloodborne pathogens class first. Their mentor did not discuss like bloodborne pathogens and its application in the piercing studio. They were not taught about like cross-contamination in the piercing room. There was no like education on jewelry qualities or materials or styles or sizing or anatomy for different piercings, or doing anatomy assessments, or having these conversations and these interactions with clients, bedside manner, bevel theory. Like none of these concepts were taught to them or introduced to them. They were just handed a needle day one and told, push it through some skin, you're gonna be a body piercer. And 3 months into it, we're being let loose on clients to work on. And so I ended up finding this piercer on social media and took a look at their portfolio, and some of their work was solid. They had some well-placed septum piercings. They had a couple of bridge piercings that looked really good. Their double gem anatomy navels were looking really solid. There were like a couple industrials that looked good. There were some nostrils that were well-placed. There was also a lot of not so good stuff. A lot of really tiny, thin seam rings and clickers in fresh piercings. Recipe for cheese wire effect. Recipe for migration and rejection. A lot of very vertical high nostrils, very vertical high nostrils, very poorly angled, really could potentially cause serious issues with embedding and problems in the sinuses and scar tissue in the nose. Lots of smileys with circular barbells, just obliterating people's gums and teeth and causing a lot of damage. Lots of people pierce with double gem jewelry for their navel that really should have had floating navel jewelry. So lots of potential serious migration and rejection and scarring on these navels, and potentially making it so those clients can never get their belly button pierced again because of the scar tissue that they'll now have from these improperly done piercings. And there were also a lot of low septums, crooked bridges, and just inappropriate jewelry choices for a lot of different piercings. And man, looking at this, like it really genuinely hurt my heart. It really hurt my heart in 3 different ways. There's like the obvious of like, holy shit, these poor clients who are going into the studio and looking to get piercings and trusting that the person piercing them has a proper education and knows how to work on their bodies and will work on their bodies safely, and is being pierced by someone with hardly any actual professional training and education. And how many of these clients might potentially end up with serious scars and serious health issues, and the insecurities that can lead people to have about their bodies, and the lost money and the lost time and energy and effort, and just this betrayal of the trust that clients give us when they come into the studio and allow us to work on them, and the continuing frustration that when piercers are not properly trained and not properly educated, the person who pays the price for that lack of education and lack of training is the client. It is the client that suffers when this happens, and it's the client who pays this price, and they pay this price with their body, and just, it's so heartbreaking to me as someone who works as a professional who has to help these clients when they're in these situations. I literally just today had a client come in, well, not today, yesterday, had a client come in who had their vertical labret done by a not very good piercer and came to me to see what was going on with it, and it was pierced entirely too deep and was sinking in on the top and super irritated on the bottom, and we had to take it out. And I gave her all the advice that I could to minimize scarring, but it is looking like she's likely to end up with a very dark discolored scar underneath her lip and a like raised thick scar on her lip line, which affects how she eats and how she talks and is uncomfortable for her to kiss her partner with. And I held this client while she cried and asked, did I just ruin my life? Have I made it hard for me to kiss the people I love and to eat the food that I enjoy for the rest of my life because I trusted the wrong person to pierce my body? And like, it's fucking heartbreaking. And my first instinct is like, God, like these poor fucking clients. The second thing that really broke my heart was my heart broke for this piercer, because we got to talking, and you know, I let this person know, hey, I don't think you've had like the best apprenticeship or the best education, and I think like there's definitely some holes in your foundational knowledge and skills as a piercer, and I really encourage you to like take a step back from some of what you're doing and like focus on getting this foundation. And this poor person was horrified. They were horrified. We chatted for a little bit and they were so upset, and they were like, I didn't know any of this. Like, I trusted that my mentor was teaching me the right way. I did think it was like a little bit weird that I was piercing on day one, but my mentor just insisted that like that was how they did things and that you need to just kind of like jump on and get your start. And I've been feeling like kind of weird about how much I've been doing unsupervised, but my mentor just tells me that I'm like doing a good job and I'm doing things okay. And so I like just don't get a lot of critique or feedback. So I thought I was doing things the best, and I'm super frustrated that I have to like reach out to someone on the internet or like other piercers to get any kind of feedback or learn anything. And I really just want to be a good piercer and do good work for my clients. And I thought I was doing that. I thought I was doing that the right way. Like, I got an apprenticeship. I don't like pierce people out of my house. And I'm just so upset that I'm like not doing a good job. Man, do I relate, because you know, I've talked about plenty of times here on my channel that I had 3 separate apprenticeships, and my first apprenticeship was not very good. I was not trained correctly. I was not using proper jewelry. I was not using proper techniques. I was in a similar position to this person, and it was Luis Garcia and AJ who first told me, hey, you're fucking up. And that was a heartbreaking moment for me. Like, I went home and quit the studio I had been working at and had been trained at literally like the very next day, and was like, I can't keep doing this. Like, I just can't like sleep at night. I can't live with myself knowing that I'm like hurting clients and doing things wrong. And so I can relate to that crushing, sinking moment and realization of like, oh fuck, I have not been trained correctly. Like, this is something that I'm so passionate about and I care so much about and I love, and I'm not doing it well. In fact, I'm doing it very poorly. And my heart goes out to this person who thought they were doing the right thing, who trusted their mentor, who trusted their studio to give them a proper education and give them proper training, who tried to follow all the advice and take all of the right steps and get into this industry the right way, to realize how far they are from their actual goals and how much work and improvement they need to do and how much harm they've potentially caused. And that is a weight and a guilt and a burden that will stick with you forever. I've been in the industry for almost 13 years now, and I still think back to some of the piercings that I did at that first studio without proper training and apprenticeship, and I still feel mortified and horrifically guilty that I did that to people's bodies, that I made those mistakes on people's bodies. I feel terrible. And so I can relate. I can relate so much to being in that situation and finding that out and feeling that way. And I tried very hard in my interactions with this person to be honest but kind. I was frank with them about their lack of education and training and like the improvements that they needed to make, and tried to stress the point that like it's clients ultimately who are going to be the most hurt by this behavior, and it's their clients that really need to come first and matter first in all things. But I also wanted to like give them hope. Give them hope and let them see that there is a path forward. There is a path to becoming a better piercer. There are opportunities out there. There are better studios to work at. There's the opportunity to reapprentice. There's conference, and there's online resources, and there's forums and networking and connection and ways that you can improve and get out of this situation. And it was in this interaction that the third thing that broke my heart really resonated for me, which is how differently I handled this situation now versus how I would have handled it 3 years ago, 4 years ago, versus how it was handled for me when I found out that I was, not doing a good job and didn't really have a great foundational education. And I thought back to how many times in the industry I've seen this exact interaction occur. A newer piercer, a younger piercer who's maybe never connected with the industry at large, never reached out to other piercers, enters a professional space for the first time, and posts asking for advice or critique or feedback, and their work is not good. Their work is bad. They often haven't had good education and good training and things like that. In a lot of these situations, the person reaching out is younger and trusted their mentor and believed in their mentor and their coworkers, and is finding out very rudely and very publicly that what they thought they knew and what they thought their skill set was is not the case and is not the situation. And I thought about how often in these instances I practiced brutal honesty as opposed to kind honesty or compassionate honesty or understanding honesty. And I thought about the way things were said to me. I thought about being 18, 19 and being told that I should just hang up my needles and I was a failure because the work that I was doing was so bad. And I thought about the guilt that I've carried with me for years and years and years over the incorrect work I've done when I was younger. And over every mistake I have ever made in my career to this point. And I thought about the clients who ultimately are the ones who get hurt in these situations and by these practices. And I thought about the way we hold these young piercers to this incredible level of accountability for the mistakes that they make and the errors that they make. And the fact that I don't often see us hold their mentors who didn't teach them properly to the same level of accountability. And I ask myself, where is the line, right? Obviously, on one hand, these piercers are doing work that is not good and that is hurting clients and hurting people's bodies, and that is not okay, and that those unsafe practices should be called out, and clients' bodies should be at the forefront of what we do, and keeping clients' bodies safe should be at the forefront of what we do. And these days, there's more education than ever online about doing a lot of these piercings safely and correctly. So even if you have a shitty mentor or in a shitty situation, like there are hundreds, if not thousands, of free resources through the Association of Professional Piercers, through my blog, through the Rogue blog, through Jeff Saunders' blog, through Ryan Ouellette's resources online. Like, there's so much out there teaching you about things like not using seam rings in fresh piercings and like minimum sizing and what a good apprenticeship should look like. So, you know, if you are serious about getting into this industry and you've put in like any serious amount of effort into what an apprenticeship should look like and be like, you should be able to spot some of these red flags. Some of this information is just so accessible that at a certain point there is a level of ignorance and blind trust and ignoring of red flags in the situations at your studio that does seem like it's prioritizing your ego and your experience as a piercer over the experience of your clients and the safety of their bodies. But at the same time, at, 18 and 19 and 20, folks are trusting the 30 and 40 and 50-year-olds who are teaching them and training them and the adults in their lives to be doing things correctly. You get an apprenticeship with someone who's been doing this for 20, 30 years, who's the best piercer in your small town or your region or your area, and you think, okay, this person knows what they're doing. This person is going to teach me correctly. You feel a little red flaggy about some of what's going on, but your mentor says, no, this is fine. This is how it's done. You trust that. Oftentimes in these situations, it's much older adults with young people, teenagers even, and these adults are manipulating these kids into thinking that what they're teaching them and the way they're doing this is fine and it's safe and it's okay when it's not. And that we as an industry come together online and we fucking crucify these kids. We treat them like they are the scum of the earth, like they are the worst human being alive for doing a crooked septum or a kicked nostril. And I know for a fact we do it because if I'm being completely honest, that's what I would have done 5-10 years ago. I would have put on my mantle and my shield of like protecting clients' honor and clients' bodies, and I would have torn this young person a new one and just ripped them to shreds for how could they have not known better. All of this information is acceptable online. What you're doing is completely unacceptable. You're putting your own ego in front of your clients' bodies. This is disgusting behavior. You should be ashamed. You should take a break from offering all of these services that you clearly can't do well and correctly and safely. No client deserves to come in and be paying and trusting you with their bodies and get this kind of work done and get this kind of experience done. And at no point would I blame the mentor. At no point do we hold the adult responsible for teaching literal teenagers accountable for this behavior and these mistakes. And I'm not suggesting that people should not be held accountable for what they do, because at the end of the day, it is always clients' bodies that should come first. And a lot of this information is very easily accessible online. It's 2024. People have been producing content and doing stuff about this so often. If you just Google piercing apprenticeship or piercing standards, you're gonna get the APP's website. You're gonna find content from me and from Jeff and from Ryan and from very reputable sources educating folks on why these things are wrong. And most of the time when I talk to people who are in situations like this, they tell me that they knew that the red flags in their apprenticeship and in their workplace were red flags. They just were scared to say anything. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to say. They didn't know how to handle it. And on one hand, I get that. It can be hard, especially you're young, your mentors are older, you're scared. There's just so many different situations. There's so many instances of abuse in the industry. But there is, I think, a certain level of accountability that needs to be there. And to clarify, when I'm talking about this, I'm not talking about there are some piercers who are doing shit like this and then blame it on not having proper training or education, but then continue to do shit like this and not get any better. In particular, there's a couple piercers I can think of on TikTok who like do egregiously unsafe things and unsafe practices, who have been corrected multiple times and then just continue to play it off as like, I didn't know. That's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about people who genuinely want to do a good job, who genuinely care about their clients and want to do better, and have found themselves in situations where they have been misled by their bosses or their mentors or their coworkers. And in these situations, like, I do think we need to prioritize the client's bodies and the client's safety, but also like at what point do we hold the mentors and the adults in these situations more accountable than the apprentices and the kids and the young people, right? Like we as an industry have fostered a culture of like really truly like ripping into people when they make these mistakes and they do this bad work. And sometimes it is warranted because we are working on people's bodies and we can seriously injure people if we don't do this work well and correctly. But at the same time, sometimes it's not entirely that apprentice's fault. It's not entirely that piercer's fault if they have been completely and utterly gaslit and misled and abused and put into a situation where it was impossible for them to learn how to do good work or do good work correctly. And I say this as someone who is quite responsible for this kind of behavior in my own way. Like I have absolutely contributed to holding these apprentices way more accountable than I ever have their mentors. And I'm reflecting on my own behavior in the industry and how I could be better. And I want to kind of start a conversation about how all of us in the industry can reflect on that mentality and do better. Like, how do we balance holding individuals accountable for the harm that they cause to clients' bodies and for like the level of work and safety and education that they do, while also holding accountable the people who are teaching them these bad habits and the studios who are churning out 6 new apprentices every single year, who are speed running people through piercing, who are convincing impressionable young people that this is a safe and viable way to learn how to be a body piercer, and who are taking advantage of people's free labor and desire to be in the industry and just churning out bad piercer after bad piercer. And ultimately, at the end of all of these interactions, how do we make it safer for the clients, right? Because that should always be the main goal and the main takeaway is, what are we doing? How are we creating safety for our clients? How are we creating a better, safer industry for our clients? And once again, I come in here to share a lot of the complex thoughts that I'm having and a lot of the reflections that I'm having. And I don't necessarily have all of the answers for it, but I'm definitely looking back on how I have treated others who have come from bad situations and how I myself was treated when I was coming from a bad situation. And I am wondering why we as an industry put so much individual responsibility on the piercer or the apprentice and so little responsibility on the people who taught them wrong, who encouraged bad behaviors, who made them believe that what they were doing was okay and safe and right, and who manipulated them and lied to them and misled them. And how do we hold people accountable to learn how to do better piercing and safer piercing, and ultimately have the goal of keeping clients safe while not crucifying the apprentice for the sins of the mentor? And I don't know. I don't have the perfect answer for how we do that, but I think it's a conversation worth having. And I want to be better. I want to be better for my peers and for this industry. And when people come to me who need help and need advice, I want to be a safer person for people to come to. I don't want to be the person who holds an apprentice completely to task for the ways their mentor has failed. I always want to be a person who's honest. If someone's doing unsafe work or dangerous work or hurting clients, I want to tell someone that. I want to warn someone about that. I want to share education and safety so someone can do better. But I want to do it with more grace and more compassion than I've shown in the past. And I want to really consider who is responsible in some of these situations for this harm that is being done to clients. Is it solely 100% on this apprentice? Or is their mentor, are their coworkers partially responsible for what is happening here? And how do we have these conversations in a way that makes people want to learn and grow and do better and doesn't just shut people down and scare them away from seeking out help in the industry? And if you're someone who's been in professional forums with me and seen me have these interactions with folks online years ago, I'm sorry for the way I behaved in those interactions. And I didn't look at the full picture, and I didn't take into account the impact of the mentor's role and that level of manipulation and responsibility. And I should have addressed those situations oftentimes with a little bit more kindness. And I want to do better moving forward. And I want us as an industry to do better moving forward. And I think the only way we do that is to have these difficult conversations and for folks to be honest and transparent when they realize that they've been handling these interactions incorrectly, which I think I have, and I think a lot of the industry has. And that's why I wanted to sit down and make this video. And it's a little rambly, as many of my Chatting Get Ready With Me's have been lately, and a little all over the place, but I hope it can inspire some good conversations and some good thoughts about how we handle these interactions in the industry. All right, folks, well, I have a long day of filming ahead of me. It is the tail end of May right now, and it is the end of my big content crunch. I'm trying to get all of my summer content done so that I can have a little summer break. I need to try and do 9 videos today, so wish me luck, wish me motivation, wish me energy, and let's see if we can get it all finished. Thanks so much for hanging out and listening to me chat and watching me get ready. And I can't wait to sit down and talk with y'all again soon. Bye.